Today's proven email breakdown is going to be a sad one because this email is a very emotional, touching story of Danette May and how she lost her child literally a few days before giving birth. So this is definitely not for the faint-hearted. And I wanted to cover this email still because it's a great example of using vulnerable personal stories in your marketing to really build an extremely strong emotional connection, a bond with your target audience, with the right ideal customer avatar. And in this case, Danette May, she's mainly appealing to women, maybe middle-aged women, younger women, older women, but mostly women who at some point probably are thinking of having a child, or they already have children, maybe multiple children. And I'm absolutely sure that sharing a story like this definitely hits hard with this target audience. But even if you're not in this target audience, like take me for example, I don't have a child yet. And even when I was reading this email, I almost started crying, to be honest, because it's there's this point in good storytelling called the moment of highest tension, or the darkest hour. You can also call it that. And that part, man, this email, it's really hardcore. But this is what real honesty, vulnerability looks like in marketing communication. And it's also a great example of how you can do incredibly effective marketing and copywriting without being sleazy and aggressive and sounding like a marketer and trying to bash people over the head with your offer. This is incredibly effective copywriting, but it's also a personal, real story. So you can definitely combine the two. So this email, it's a little longer compared to some of our previous emails, and it's formatted just like some sort of letter. So it's gonna take a while to get through it, but I still want to cover it in depth because I think there are a lot of great things that you can learn about storytelling, about honest, transparent communication in your marketing, and why you don't necessarily have to be ashamed of these things. We all have like negative things that happen to us. We can all share these in vulnerable emails because you build a lot of trust with your audience. For example, in my welcome sequence, there's a story. It's I think the second or third email that talks about how I struggled in the beginning when I got started, and it's not so hard, like it's not so touching like this story. But still, it's a great story that connects with a lot of people, and I regularly get replies to that email because of this. So I hope you're gonna enjoy this, and I hope you're gonna learn a lot of things from this video. But before we get started, by the way, if you're new here, hit the subscribe button. I'm covering these emails daily nowadays, and also if you know of someone who might appreciate long form breakdowns like this video, either email breakdowns or proven sales letter breakdowns, there's links in the description to these playlists, to hundreds of videos literally, then I definitely would be grateful of you sharing this with them if they're interested. Thank you so much for it in advance. So let's just jump into the email. The subject line is "The worst day of my life and how it benefits you." So we call this the worst day email. The worst day of my life, it kind of coincides with the type of email. But then the other part of the subject line and how it benefits you, it basically teases how you can gain something from my misery. So I think this is a 1-2 punch for people to actually open this. One thing though that's very weird in this case is that the from line is Danette, right? But the from email address is support@danettemay.com. I would definitely change this to danette@danettemay.com. It's not complicated to set up yet another email called danette@danettemay.com. It would seem way more personal compared to just support@danettemay.com. I don't quite understand why this is like this, but I think it's a clear improvement opportunity. Then the email, the top of the email has a little branding element with the unique selling proposition. It's a very simple unique selling proposition that says America's leading healthy lifestyle expert. And it also has a tagline, love the body you live in, because it's not about just living away in the gym all the time, but instead it's like, hey, you can actually love your life and love your body. So it's already clear that this is kind of like a mindset thing. Her unique mechanism relates to some sort of mindset thing instead of just a fitness plan. So let's jump into the email. I still remember it as clearly as day. So we start in the middle of the action. I'd been patiently waiting for my new baby boy to arrive for nearly 9 months. So this is, we set up an anticipation, but you can feel that something is about to go wrong, especially because of the subject line, the worst day of my life. So I was severely sick for most of my pregnancy, but that didn't even matter. I was just excited to be a mom. So this is her dream, her desire. It definitely connects with a lot of people in her target audience. The next part. The night before he was born, I felt something off in my body. I couldn't put my finger on it, but something didn't feel right. So, we already get a sense that danger is incoming. So this is kind of like setting up the punchline in a story setting. But in this case, the punchline, it's unfortunately some sort of big negative thing that's happening. Unfortunately, growing up, I was taught to ignore my emotions and push through the pain instead of trusting my intuition. So this is a common false belief that probably most of her audience resonates with, because a lot of women who want to, stay fit so let's say they're middle-aged women and they want to stay fit, they want to keep their beauty, they want to keep their health. A lot of them definitely have an unrelenting standard schema. This is more of an advanced psychology thing. Schema therapy, you can look it up from Jeffrey Young, schema therapy, and how you can eventually use it in copywriting if you want. But there's something called the unrelenting standards schema, and I think this relates to that. And it explains a lot of the actions that people in this target audience do. Pretty exciting psychology stuff, right? So she says, so I just did. I woke up the next day with strong contractions. My intuition was screaming at me to get to the hospital. I got there, panicked, and they hooked up the baby monitors. And then came the worst sentence I've heard in my life. So this part basically communicates that I made a huge mistake. I should have listened to my intuition. And then there's the big setup for the I wouldn't call it punchline in this case, but like the darkest hour, the moment of highest tension. And it says, Danette, I can't begin to describe how hard it is to say this, but there's no heartbeat. So this is kind of the punch. It kind of, this is the part that almost made me cry, because it just, like, people who've been in this situation or who are expecting a child or who want to have a child, this is one of their biggest nightmares, right? And even if you're just some regular teenager or something, this part still, it's a punch to the gut, because it makes you feel strong emotions. And that's one of the hallmarks of great copywriting. Now, I'm not saying that Danette did this because she wanted to like persuade you or manipulate you to buy her stuff or something. Maybe this was actually written by a copywriter, not even her, or something. But it's definitely very effective communication in the sense that it gets people to feel something, and that's very powerful. So actually by sharing her sadness, by sharing her shock, she's building an extremely strong connection with her audience. So then she continues, I couldn't take it. I burst into an uncontrollable, hysterical cry and felt like my entire world had been ripped apart. So this is honest, vulnerable. It's a strong emotional reaction that also elicits a strong reaction from the audience. And then came the worst part, but wait, there's more. It's worse. I still had to give birth to my lifeless, sweet little baby boy. So ooh, that hurts. Like that really agitates the pain, and it makes a bad situation worse. So then she continues, I know it sounds strange, but when the doctors lay him on my chest, I still remember crying, but feeling an immense sense of peace. I felt as if he were watching over me, and I still do. So again, this is honest, vulnerable, and it's belief sharing. She shares a belief that makes her look really good in this situation, because she just lost her baby boy and she had to give birth to a lifeless child. But still, she managed to get something relatively positive out of it, right? She was wise. She was humble about it, let's say. And I think this also, like, it just makes her seem like a likable person. And she probably is. Because even at her biggest pain point, even at her biggest catastrophe of a situation, she still tried to saw the light of day. So then she continues, on the ride home, I kept staring at my empty car seat, screaming to myself in my head, it's all my fault. I was completely riddled with guilt. Self-blame, again, it's very common in this target audience. It's common in a lot of target audiences. Like, people blame themselves for all sorts of stuff. But a lot of women, they have extra self-blame because, unfortunately, in many cases, their upbringing involved a lot of blame. Like, people shifted a lot of blame to them. It's your fault because you did this or that. Of course, guys can also feel that, but I'm guessing that in this particular case, for this particular target audience, this is a biggie. Then we agitate the pain even more. The next 3 months were the darkest months of my life. My body physically wanted to take care of the baby, but couldn't. My mind and soul screamed to see my baby boy, but he was gone. I didn't leave the house for 3 entire months. So this is the actual darkest hour. This is the point where, if you studied Greek mythology or Roman mythology or any other type of mythology, there's always a point in the hero's journey story where people go down in the underworld. There's a famous river called the Styx River in Greek mythology. And there's a, I don't know the exact name. I don't remember exactly, but you should definitely look this up, the Styx River, and how you go down to the underworld, and there's this guy in a boat who takes you to the other side of the river. So in this case, our hero, which is Danette, goes down to the underworld, almost passes the threshold, almost basically spiritually dies at the end of this whole thing. But this is the turning point. And it's a very important part in every single story. And she even says it, like, as horrible as all this sounds, I feel it was the turning point of my life. So this was it's always like lightest after the dark. There's even a saying like this. Or there's always darkest before the dawn. I think this is the more popular version. And again, this builds a lot of trust and emotional rapport with her. So there are rays of hope at this point, because she says, during a walk, I felt the world open up around me. In an instant, everything became clear, and it was as if my soul began to finally release the darkness that had surrounded me the past few months. A voice told me it was time to start healing myself. At this time, I listened. So this circles back to the beginning of the email, where she said that something didn't feel right, something felt off, but I just pushed through the pain because this is how I was taught, right? Well, not anymore. I learned from my mistakes. So this is kind of like there's character development in this story. It's very important in a movie or series as well for you to have character development. Something happens to our protagonist that causes them to reevaluate their life choices, their life decisions. Over the next few months, I began focusing on healing foods, healing movements, and a healing mindset. This is, at this point, a relatively standardized hero's journey story. All the negative aspects of my life began to fall away. My broken marriage fell away. My old eating habits died off. And my mindset shifted from one of being a victim to one of taking control of my life. How powerful is that, right? Because first of all, these are benefits that our target audience in this case definitely wants. But also, we get even more insight into Danette's earlier life. And there are vulnerable details like eating habits, old eating habits, probably that also produced a lot of shame, and a lot of people can definitely relate to this part, like bad eating habits. Also broken marriage. Again, so many people struggle with unhappy marriages or go through painful divorces. And by sharing these details, people can feel like, oh yeah, Danette, she's just like me. Because otherwise, they just Google her name, she seems like this fitness influencer or healthy lifestyle influencer, and they're like, oh yeah, I know, Danette can have a great body, but I can't because I'm different, because, I don't know, I just don't have the emotional support for it, or I don't have enough money for it, or I don't have a loving husband who supports me in this or something. Well, by sharing these details, again, Danette makes it feel real and very, very approachable. That's why you see many of these things in these types of stories. Like, I spent all my money. At one point, I only had like $38 in my bank account, and I was almost homeless. And my girlfriend broke up with me. Yada yada yada. All these details are there so that the protagonist of the story, the hero, is more relatable. Because if you were to say, and that's why, let's say, Superman isn't really a relatable hero, because he's just almost perfect in every way. Like, there's kryptonite that can help or that can hurt or kill him, but that's it, kryptonite. Apart from that, he's just a perfect person. Like, he's overpowered. And in the newer Superman movies, they try to establish like an internal conflict in them. But the reason why Batman is more popular than Superman is because he has more internal conflict, and he's not basically a demigod. He isn't really overpowered that much. And the same thing is true in your stories that you share in your books or marketing materials or wherever. So then we continue. We shift into kind of like a discovery/experimental story. I began telling my personal training clients everything was happening and experimented having them do the same. They immediately began having similar, massive transformational experiences like I went through, and my personal training business exploded. So this is proof. This is the first time we already have proof elements that this is working. People want this. I have internal motivation to do this, but it's still helping people genuinely. Eventually, I realized that my true calling in life was to experience this concept of healing foods, movement, and mindset. And at this point, we've now influenced over 1 million women across the world. So personal mission plus more proof elements that this is actually what people need. So then we have the philosophical question. We've seen these before. Many sales letters or great sales arguments use this. So why share this traumatic story? Because it reminds me of you. So philosophical question, and then the reason why. Why? Because here's the reason. And then we have like the typical it's not your fault part, which is kind of needed in almost any type of sophisticated sales pitch. So many women are haunted by what's happened up until now. They guilt themselves into thinking it's their fault for being overweight. But that's a lie. The truth is, it's not your fault. Because again, like, people, you don't want to make them feel like shit. Certainly to some part, it is their fault, but it's true that they've been misled by many other false gurus, or they just didn't have the information or the emotional support or the social support necessary to carry through their diet plan, for example. And Danette even realizes this. She says, if you're like the vast majority of my amazing community, you've tried 1, 3, 5+ different methods for achieving your dream body, yet nothing has worked. Here's why. So this is if you're familiar with Gene Schwartz and his works. If not, check out my Gene Schwartz videos in the Proven Sales Letter Breakdown series. Link to the full playlist in the description. But he came up with the concept called the stages of market sophistication, and this relates to how many similar pitches your target audience has been exposed to. And the more pitches and the more noise there is, the more likely you are to encounter people who've failed before in the past. Your product and your brand isn't the first one they've seen. So they already have tons of pre-existing baggage that you have to overcome and clearly show how you're different. And the weight loss industry definitely is one of the most competitive industries out there. And most people probably failed with their weight loss endeavors because of various reasons. But you definitely have to take this into consideration and just put this out there. Like, hey, I understand your pain. You failed many times, but it wasn't your fault. It was because you didn't do something wrong because nobody told you how to do it, or you were focusing on the wrong things or something like that. So here's why nothing worked. Most fitness experts are focused on what to eat and how to move your body. They're obsessed with following specific, strict rules, forcing you to eat certain foods and do certain workouts. So what's happening here? Like, it's the exact same thing that's happening in the make money online niche, which is like, hey, the reason why you failed to build a six-figure business is because you've been focusing on tactics only taught by most gurus. They just tell you to do this and this and this and use these copywriting formulas, and then you're gonna become a millionaire or something. But it's not true. It doesn't work like that because those rules are strict. They're just tactics. She says, considering most women are not successful losing weight, following a strict diet is clearly not enough. So it's not enough. And I discovered that your mind is the key to lasting weight loss. So this is her unique mechanism. And again, we talked about the unique mechanism so many times before. In fact, in April, I'm doing a 2-week, actually a 2-month group implementation program. And one of the major things we're going to be focusing on is the unique mechanism, like how to use a unique mechanism to shift the positioning and the marketing messaging of your entire product so that it doesn't trigger so much sales resistance. Well, this is her unique mechanism. This is what makes her unique. It's not about workouts and diets. It's about your mind. So then she says, if you believe food sticks to your hips, if you just look at it, look at this, how nice this is. Food sticks to your lips if you just look at it. You would never be able to come up with something like this on your own. This clearly came from so-called voice of customer data. So from research in other cases. If you believe food sticks to your hips, even if you just look at it, or you aren't worthy to be sexy, or your subconscious mind will sabotage all your weight loss efforts, regardless of what program you're following. Couple that with a focus on healing foods and healing movements with plenty of wiggle room so it's easy to follow, and you can see why it's so powerful. So at this point, we just get a very brief high-level overview of her unique mechanism. You know, my unique mechanism that focuses on the mind is different, it's superior, and it's better compared to anything else, all the 1, 3, 5 things you've tried before, because it's about mindset, and it has plenty of wiggle room, so it's easy. You know, people want easy, fast, and simple, and it's still super powerful. And then we have a pretty nice proof element, because this is a claim and you have to back it up with proof. So she says, this is why we have so many success stories from women who have failed on other programs, from women in their 20s all the way up to women in their 70s. So this qualifies a lot of people. Yet I realize that you've likely been told this is different before, which is why I've decided to give you the entire DVD for free. So this is the it's a huge objection handling, if you think about it, with the reason why, because yes, a lot of people told you that this is different. I mean, their stuff is different, but my stuff is actually truly different, and I'm so confident in it that I just want to give you the entire DVD for free. So this is, if you think about it, kind of like a webinar. She's giving away a free training, a free long-form training, a masterclass or something, and can bet you my pants that she's gonna have a pitch at the end of it, but it's fine. Like, she's giving people so much value. And of course, like, probably, you know, she gives away she gives away the what and the why, but then parts of the how is part of her paid program. But it's still, like, for some people that makes sense. For other people, maybe who are more self-starters or more advanced, they can just use this on their own. Then we have the call to action. You can get it here with a little benefit overview, like, hey, this will help you. If this is perfect for you if you want to stop dieting. Most people want this. They hate dieting. They want to stop skipping meals because, again, people hate it, and want to drop a few pounds without starving yourself. So you lose weight without starving yourself. This is what people want, if you think about it. So these are all just benefits that actually real life flesh and blood people want. This is why you should appeal to already existing desires that your target audience has. Again, this comes from Gene Schwartz, this idea, instead of trying to invent new desires, because it just won't work. So then if you're looking to put your, I especially like this last sentence here. She says, if you're looking to put your life back together and stop feeling overweight and ashamed every time you get dressed or undressed, because, you know, shame is a central part in this market, and people don't just feel ashamed when they're dressed, but when it's time for sexy time, when it's time to get undressed, then they feel a lot of the shame, right? Especially if they're trying to date new people. It's a biggie. So it's a good thing that she addresses this. I highly recommend taking a look at how easy and simple change can be. Again, simple, easy, fast, that's what people want. And probably because they failed so many times before, they feel like, it's impossible for them to really lose weight because maybe it's in their genes or something. But Danette gives them new hope. And especially after such an emotional story, a roller coaster ride, giving them new hope is super effective. And they're, in most cases, they're kind of receptive for it. I highly recommend taking a look at how easy and simple change can be. So go here now and get it for free. Sending all my love, Danette May. So yeah, it's a super effective email. I can't even imagine the reply rates on this. Even to my story, which is clearly inferior to this one, I get a lot of replies from people, but this one, man, it's just next level. And if you're comfortable with doing something like this, I definitely recommend you also try it once. And I noticed that she also uses this on her about page, by the way. So I think it's definitely a great way to start the relationship with new subscribers off on the right foot. So at the end, we just have a PS, which is it all just copy related to boosting deliverability. Hey, this is how you can whitelist my emails. Let's connect on social. Here's how you can unsubscribe if you no longer want to receive these emails. So just standard stuff here, which help her deliverability rates. But yeah, man, this I like this email, and it was really emotional. It almost made me cry. Maybe even you too. But if you enjoyed it, then do me a favor and leave a comment below. Let me know which part resonated the most with you, even if you're not in her target audience. I'm really curious. Let me know, and I hope you enjoyed this email. If you did, don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video with someone else. And also, I have a cool free mini course called The 5 Principles of Sending Rainmaker Emails. You might want to check it out because it will definitely help you become a better email marketer, email copywriter, or just someone who better understands how persuasive communication works. So check it out, links in the description, and see you in the next one.